Hello, everybody. Welcome to the today's session of the 12 Ronnies live stream. I'm Christopher Norris. I'm your host for today. I'm a white middle-aged man living in London, and I'll let Simon and Bill introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll get on with the session. So,
yeah, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're based. I'm also based near London, just outside of London, and as my title sort of says under here, I'm a mentor for startups. I focus on helping startups launch businesses. So yeah, that's me.
I'm Bill Murray. I'm in Wisconsin in the United States, and similar to Simon, I work with a lot of startups to help them validate their ideas and make sure that they're pursuing the right ones with the limited resources that they have.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, so today we're going to try something a bit different. We're going to have a session, a kind of workshop session of trying out some extreme brainstorming questions to see what Simon and Bill would do under those extreme scenarios. So I'm just going to post the first question. So this is the first one, which is, if you were forced to increase your prices of your product by 10 times, what would you have to do to justify it? So if I start off with you, Simon, then I'll just give you the stage.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Increase your prices by 10 times. I mean, that's an awfully large increase. So to justify that, you've really got to be looking at justifying that your product quality, amongst other things, has to be significantly better than it was before if you've made such a large price increase, and then justifying all the added value for the increase. So maybe you've added additional services, or maybe you're offering a lot more personalized customer services or premium features. But I don't think you can just increase your prices without changing something and justifying it. You could do clever things such as have a limited edition for those increased priced products, but it's quite hard to increase by that amount without changing your messaging and the quality of your products. So that's probably how I would approach things.
Okay, thank you, Simon. How about you, Bill?
Yeah, in a case like this, I agree with everything that Simon said. In some cases, this could be an opportunity to become a luxury brand, and that's a whole different type of value proposition and marketing and everything else. So, you look at a brand like Rolex, for instance, and you watch how they sell you a watch for $25,000 that may only cost them $25 to produce. Mirroring that type of marketing, showing people living lifestyles with your product and enjoying your product in ways that reinforce some of those lifestyle issues. That might be the direction to go.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, I'm just going to post the next question. Bill, if you, I'll go with you first this time. So this time, if all your customers vanished overnight, and you had to earn your growth and develop your brand from scratch, what would you do?
Yeah, so what I like about questions like this is these are things that entrepreneurs should be doing all the time anyway. These aren't just exercises in what if, because what you need to always be doing is always inventorying what you have as an entrepreneur, as a business, and inventorying what you're good at. So we have these resources, and we have these skills, these core competencies. Big companies use these questions to come up with what are called adjacencies, side businesses that they can do because they're good at their main business. Like an auto insurance company might also offer auto services, or a home insurance company might offer home services because they're good at talking to people that own cars and homes and that kind of thing. So in a case like this with no customers, inventory, what do you have? What is it that we have that we can sell? And what is it that we're good at? What are the things that we're really good at? And sometimes it's not apparent. Sometimes you're just really good at having a good database. Well, with this database, we could do these other things. With this inventory, we could do these things. In fact, near me, there was a distillery that was all about their foot traffic. Well, when COVID hit 4.5 years ago, they had no foot traffic anymore. So they inventoried what they had, said, well, we're good at making ethanol. Well, what else? Who else wants ethanol right now? Well, everybody wants ethanol for hand sanitizer. So very quickly they went from making gin and vodka and some wonderful spirits to making some great hand sanitizer.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Bill. I'll just go to Simon in a minute once I've worked out how to press the right buttons. So Simon, same question. What if the customers disappeared? What would you do?
Yeah, I love Bill's answer about going to what you're good at. I think that's such a great answer in terms of where you stand and where you're positioned, and just going, I haven't got any customers, what do I do now? You need a starting point. One thing I will say though is you could take the approach that, okay, I haven't got any customers now, I've got to relaunch. I'm back at the idea phase. How do I get customers? So you're back at the market research phase. You're back at the idea validation phase. You're back at looking at customer personas and customer segments, and it's a way to start again. Based on, I would also say what Bill said, very much based on what you're good at and what you can produce. So going back to the idea phase and doing all the validation and research work is how I would approach that, along with Bill's approach.
I mean, we did have, as Bill said, a real world example of a catastrophic event like the coronavirus, where you've actually had to deal with that situation. So some of these extreme brainstorming questions are actually quite practical, because they're worth thinking about because of unusual things that might happen. Okay,
those are those black swan events, and that's
exactly.
What help you do.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't think about them, then it's bad news. So okay, so next question, Simon, I'll stay with you. Oops, I've got the wrong one up there. So let me get rid of that. So the next question is, if you didn't have any tech support, so you weren't allowed to provide tech support for your customers regarding your new product or any product you were selling, what would you have to change to get around that problem?
Well, I think if you're not actually offering now support for your product, then your product's got to be really intuitive. So if you've decided to not offer that support, then you're probably quite happy in the user-friendly design and how intuitive your product is. And you'll almost certainly want to have comprehensive documentation, whether that's FAQs or user guides. But something I'm a big fan of is building communities. And I think if you're not offering tech support, there's a big opportunity to offer community support for your product, where you're, in a way, you're really outsourcing the tech support to your community of users. And that has added benefits of driving user engagement and users giving who are used to using the product, giving hints and tips and support.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. That's interesting. So Bill, same question.
Yeah, I love the community aspect, because what it does is it gives you so much more than just free help for your customers. It shows you who your early adopters are and what they're passionate about, and those are people that you can then bring in and message about future improvements and that kind of thing. So, but as Simon said, it has to be super easy, which means you have to do really good customer discovery on the front end for usability. This app has to be so easy that your grandmother can use it, so to speak. So doing that research with the customer, sitting right there, watch them interact with it, seeing what button they push and then what happens and where their frustrations are, doubling down on that is a big deal. And this isn't a hypothetical question. This is a reality for most startups. They don't have tech support. They can't afford it. So this is something every startup probably has to go through.
Yeah, and I guess it also applies to advertising. I remember back in the day, Apple used to run some very intuitive ads for you know, it just works out of the box sort of thing, didn't they? So
It just works. That's right.
okay, that's great. So let's stay with you, Bill. Let's put the new question on, which is, if you were to build a product that was the most fun you could make it, then how would you build that?
Well, I mean, as far as different types of products, there's, you know, out in the world, there are pains, gains, and jobs to be done. And the most fun I've ever had building a product was when it was you know, the gains or the passions. When you had someone who was passionate about something, but the only problem was they weren't getting enough of it. And this was a fun product to build because we were talking to people that were really excited about what we were doing, because they could see their life getting even better in doing this thing that they love. So, you know, the customer discovery was fun, and the iterations of the product was great because the customer was excited every time we brought them something new. So I think that's the most fun for me is when you've got someone who's super passionate and, you know, and really wants to be right in there with you to create it, because they can see that better world for them at the beginning.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Let's bring Simon on. So Simon, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, well, I'll follow on from Bill there, because I love his mentioning games, for instance. I love gamification of things. It just makes it more exciting. It just makes engagement better and more fun. I mean, the question's about fun. Games are generally fun. That's why people play them. Being an entrepreneur myself and helping to mentor entrepreneurs, it would be, and I'm sure there are these games out there, it would be really fun to build a game for entrepreneurs, a game about starting businesses. I know some of them are out there, but I think I'd have a great deal of fun saying, well, let's put this game together and award people points of how they start their business, how they come up with their ideas, how they validate their ideas, how they research their ideas, how they do customer discovery, all of those great things, how they build their launch plans. That would be fun to put that together.
I can imagine a kind of customized version of something like Monopoly, for example. You know, so you can imagine that working, couldn't you? So
yes.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so Simon, since you're there, this is the next one. If your biggest competitor copied every feature you have for your product, how could you still win?
Well, this isn't an unusual question.
I know. I get that.
So, you know, your product's out there in the market. It's there to be copied. If it's good, it should be copied. And it's a really good starting point for entrepreneurs to launch into the market to creatively copy a product that's there and put their own slant on it. The way to really defend on that side of things isn't to create massive moats. It's to build trust with your customers, with your clients. If you've got a brand that they trust, then that means it's harder for people to switch to a new brand who they don't know. So one thing's about trust and brand loyalty. You know, you can keep innovating, but it's around the experience that you offer. If somebody's copied your experience, then and they've got an identical product, I would say a lot of your effort has to go into enhancing the customer experience and maintaining the trust you've got with customers so that they won't switch to a rival. I wouldn't approach it by dropping my prices, for instance. I would focus on my quality, what I deliver well, and the strength and trust of my brand.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Bill, have you? How would you like to add to that answer?
Yeah, you know, to continue where Simon left off, you know, buying customers is the most expensive way to fail. So, cutting costs and having a race to the bottom rarely works. So, you know, tactically, we've all seen TV commercials or whatever where, you know, a company puts has a pig out there and a pig in a costume and says, you know, so and so is trying to imitate us, but they can never beat the original. I love what Simon said about building trust and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, this question comes down to maintaining relevancy in the marketplace, and that comes by evolution. You know, a company doesn't offer the same product, you know, for decades and decades and stay competitive. They have to continually improve the product, leverage the trust that they've built with the initial product, but evolve from that product, expand their product line, and go places where other people aren't, because you know, hope is not a strategy, and you know, hoping that, you know, people will just stick with you as your competitors not only copy your product but probably start improving on it, because that's generally what happens in the end. It isn't where you want to be long term, but short term, definitely build the trust and you know, and differentiate yourself.
So as a kind of follow on from that, Bill, let's say your competitor has a much bigger marketing budget than you have. How would you deal with that?
That's a good one. With you know, it doesn't always come down to money. Again, you know, the trust factor is good. There are ways. I'm trying to think of an example right off the top of my head, but I can't. But there are ways to use the proverbial judo move on someone who with a big budget. You know, they go out with 10 commercials, but you've got one that ends up leveraging the 10 commercials that they put out there. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I know there's an example of this, but I'm not. It's still early in the morning for me. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I think, you know, the potential judo move, but also just the relevance. You know, sometimes you have to say, let them have it because we're better at this thing, and we can leverage our existing customers into some of these other products.
Okay. Simon, do you want to add to that, or do you want to move on to the next question?
Move on to the next one, because I think if you're talking about now somebody with a competitive advantage over you. So you're bringing into, they might have a better product, a bigger marketing budget, a better brand. So you've just got to continue to focus, as Bill said earlier on what you're good at.
Yes. Okay, Simon. Given that you just made a contribution there, that you carry on with the next question, which is, let's say you're responding to an emergency and you have to try and get something out with a new feature, and you're forced to ship a completed, you know, an MVP with a new feature, but you've got like only a couple of weeks to do it. What would you need to put in place to achieve that target?
Yeah, well, this is again about focus. I think when we're launching products, or when we've got existing products there, we all think of the features and all the brilliant things it can do, and often we can lose focus and just continually add features. So this is quite a good question, because it's really about prioritization. It's really about saying, well, we've got a limited amount of time now. What are we going to release? What are we going to prioritize? And it's about getting your team on board, or whoever if you're outsourcing to people or your trusted partners, to come on the journey with you on prioritization for certain features. If you've got limited time, you can't do everything. So I would say prioritization is the big thing for you to do. Okay,
thank you, Simon. And Bill?
Yeah, I agree. You know, you're bringing your customers in, and you know, having very intense sessions with them, and limiting what you build down to the minimal thing. You know, just like writing a book. You know, it's said that, you know, when you're editing, there isn't a single page where you couldn't remove a word or two. So as you look at the thing that you think you want to release, you know, what are the words that you can remove? How much can you remove and still deliver the outcome? Because remember, it's about outcomes, not features. People buy benefits, they don't buy features. So what's the benefit your customer wants? What's that minimum thing that will at least buy me enough time to build it into something that I want? You know, can I even release it as something that's, you know, the proverbial mechanical Turk, something that's controlled in the background, because we haven't had time to build build the coding to make it run automatically. So those kind of decisions, you know, with your customer right there, using it and showing you what features are needed, I think that's the best way to go. We had a question from Julie Shively as well.
Yeah, no, that I was going to. Is this from Juliet? I don't know. Well, it's an anonymous one as far as I'm concerned. But is that the one that starts very interesting and thought-provoking.
Yes. Yeah, that's Julie.
I'll bring that on. So, oops.
And it's very much like one of your other questions, I think.
Yeah, well, thank you, Julie. And also just to take this opportunity to say to anybody that's in the audience, if you want to ask a question, then please, we encourage you to pop that in the comments box if you're at LinkedIn, or a comment at YouTube or any of the other platforms where we're launching. So yes, please have a go at answering that, Bill. I won't attempt to read it because it's very long.
So, if it's this is about losing your ability to interact with your customers. And, in this case, Julie's talking about losing the internet. She works with educators around the world, and obviously traveling to all those places would be out of the question. So, what happens if you lose the internet? Well, the question is, well, how did we do things 30 years ago? Because we didn't have the internet then. So what did we do? Well, we mailed things. We brought people in from time to time. We interacted with people on the phone. The phone is even in the developing world is in a much better place than it was 30 years ago. In fact, most of the developing world skipped the landline and went right to cellular phones. So if you didn't have the internet, how could you use the phone to deliver your value? Again, it's the outcomes. What am I trying to do with my customer? Where am I trying to get them? Because a lot of times we get really focused and married to a product instead of the outcome. And sometimes we can get that outcome in a way that we never thought of, and could be a lot easier, a lot cheaper, and a lot easier to deliver when we don't have bandwidth.
Thank you, Bill. And how about you, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, I've just I'm effectively going to say something very similar to Bill, just in different terms of it's there was a world before the internet, and we managed to do business, and we managed to attract customers, and we managed to deliver value, and those customers had what we call in entrepreneurship terms jobs to be done. The fact that we now do a lot of those jobs in the digital world, and increasingly using sophisticated tools such as AI, doesn't mean we can't come back to delivering those jobs in a non-digital way. So it's as Bill said, it's about the customer. It's about what they want. It's about the jobs that they want to be done. And I think you can adapt. Sometimes if the internet isn't there, you're just literally not able to do it in an efficient way. But most of the things can be done in a non-digital world.
Yes. Well, I'll just show you what Julie said in response. This is what Julie said in response, which is quite amusing. Okay. We'll go to and also just while I'm talking about our audience, Phil put a comment in just to say hello earlier on. So Phil, if you've got a question that you'd like to ask, then please do drop it in the comments. So next question, Simon. Since you're on stage already, if you had to flip your business model, which I guess is similar to the kind of COVID situation that we were in, how would you go about charging customers in a different way? And maybe you could talk about the genesis of Founders and Mentors. I mean, that might be an interesting thing to talk about, perhaps.
Yeah, I think the previous question that Julie asked actually sort of relates to this as well. We're not having the internet, having to not have a website, etc., not being in the digital world. It sort of relates to it all. I mean, part of it is it's your business model as such. If you're forced to charge customers in a completely different manner, you've got to look at your business model, and it might be that there are various business models. You might change to a subscription model, or a freemium model, or a performance-based model. There's lots of different business models out there that you may want to change to if you've got to charge your customers differently. You're just quickly referring back to when you mentioned Founders and Mentors.
Yeah,
because of COVID, and because of us not being able to meet face to face in the way we were, we looked at changing how we came together as a community online. for founders and mentors. So the mentoring wasn't done face to face, but we changed our model to be an online model. But we did so it wasn't a charging model as such, but we changed our business model in that way to an online model because of COVID. But the standard charging models are subscription and the one, freemium, performance based, some of the ones I outlined before.
Thank you, Simon. And you, Bill?
Yeah, again, this isn't just some hypothetical question. This is simply, how does a business address evolution? Let's look at for smartphone applications. Back in the day when smartphones came out, there was a gold rush, and everyone was writing apps, and they were all 99 cents to download, and you bought it once and you used it forever, except when the app went out of business because they couldn't afford the bandwidth anymore because they only charged it 99 cents and didn't come back for any money. So the evolution went to like a freemium model. We'll get you in for free with some basic services, but then we're going to get you in for 99 cents a month, or just simply, hey, we're going to charge you monthly without even a freemium model. So the important thing though is to make sure that if you're going to start charging people a subscription instead of a one-time fee, now the burden is on you to continue to offer them monthly value. So the focus becomes more long-term than short-term. How do I evolve with this customer and continue to drive them value as their needs change?
Thank you, Bill. What I'm going to do now is, we've had a response, I guess, from Julie, which I'm going to show on screen, where she's saying, you've really got her thinking about what happens if the internet dies. And the reason I'm showing that is that I have a related question, which I guess will be the last one, where it's essentially, if you're not allowed to have a website, or if the internet does go down, what do you do? Bill, if you'd like to start with that one.
Yeah, again, real world. Netflix does a great job of this. They actually have a team that looks at all of these sort of black swan events, and they decide in advance what they're going to do as a company, so that when it happens, they don't have to, in public, make a decision and hem and haw, and maybe make one decision and then make another, like we've seen some companies do very embarrassingly. So the classic case was when what's his name, Kevin Spacey, whoever it was accused of some inappropriateness. They took his show off the air like that day or the next day. It was there wasn't any questions, there was no conversation. It was already set. Hey, if we have an actor and they get in trouble in these various ways, the show is off. We don't test it with the public. We just make a stand as a company. So it's working with a coach who can help you think about the different types of things that can go wrong, because this is hard as an entrepreneur, because you're very focused on what can go right. List these things and say, okay, how will we deal with them when it happens? And then you put a plan, at least a basic plan together, so that you at least have step one, so you can get out the gate quickly. And then that beats your competitors, because most of them are not doing this type of this type of planning.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And Simon?
Yeah, I'll answer the question directly about the no website part, because there are a surprising number of companies that don't have websites. And when I say surprising, a website isn't always needed. And we're talking about growing your businesses. Often you don't grow them directly from your website. You use other sources. So your web presence could be on social media. It could be on LinkedIn or Facebook or TikTok or whichever other social media platform you use. You don't actually need a website. You can grow your business in the digital space from other social media platforms, or use other platforms like online marketplaces. You don't need your own e-commerce site to sell your goods. You can go to Amazon, Etsy, eBay. So there are all these marketplaces where that can attract customers for you, that you don't need to build your own website. And of course there's the offline presence and the things that Bill talked about there. But I would say that people always seem to default to, what web domain am I going to have? I need to build a website. Often that's not needed at all. It's a red herring, really.
Yeah, I guess that's the difference between the internet and having a website, isn't it? I mean, if the internet went down completely, then that's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and
Okay,
again,
well,
we ask ourselves, how
yeah.
did we sell stuff 30 years ago?
Well, that's true. I mean, the old Sears catalog, you know, and that kind of thing. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Before we go, just a request for anybody in the audience that hasn't already done this. We're looking to try and get people to like and follow and subscribe to our Facebook channel, because that helps us with getting a live broadcast going on Facebook as well, because Facebook recently changed the rules. So I don't know, Simon, do you want to speak to that briefly, or
yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, Chris, making that request. What's our Facebook page?
It's 12 Ronnies. So if you go to Facebook and put in the search engine
12 Ronnies,
12 Ronnies, then
Yeah.
you'll find us.
And just one last thing as well, we're going to make us by popular request now. We're going to move the time of these calls on a Wednesday 2 hours later. The popular request is coming from the west coast of the States, where it's currently about 6:30 in the morning. So starting these calls at 6 o'clock really is asking quite a lot for the people on the west coast. So we're going to move it now 2 hours later. So it'll be 4 p.m. UK time and near 8 o'clock on the west coast of the States. So, but we'll post that in our social media.
Yeah, we'll see.
So you'll
Excellent.
see
Well, thank you very much, guys. Thank you to everybody in the audience.
Thank you.
Hopefully you've got some good value from today. And remember to come same time, whenever we're going to be scheduling the next one. You know, watch this space for when Simon gets back in contact with everybody. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
And goodbye. So thank you.